Ladies, gentlemen, creatures of all persuasions and intelligence, welcome to another Ace of Spades Friday website review. I am Non, and today we're going to be looking at the question, if your website were an office, how many people would meet your prospect as he walked in the door? Now, to give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm going with here, when you walk into an office looking for someone's services, or maybe just thinking about their services, typically you will talk to a receptionist and she will direct you to the sorts of people who might be the kind of people that you're looking for, the people that can actually help you. And I'm going to hazard a guess that if three different receptionists all tried to talk to you at once, you would get confused and feel vaguely insulted. So that's the context for my question. We're going to be looking at www.arvu.com. Thanks, David. And as always, we'll be using the Frodo Conversion Rate Checklist, which stands for First Reaction, Orientation, Desirability, and Offers, not forgetting good old Odo. And, of course, Attention equals Contrast plus IPath. So let's get straight into it. First reaction, how does a site make me feel? Here it is in all its glory, and to me it feels a little bit templatey. Now, that's probably my designer in me talking. Most likely, an average prospect is going to feel quite happy with it and isn't going to have any real problems. However, let me just say a couple of things. First of all, we have a fairly broad color palette in use because of the fact that you've got this picture here, you've got the orange up here, you've got grey, you've got yellow, you've got blue, you've got another kind of green, and you've got another kind of orange. So you've got a lot of different colors, and that can create a feeling of unease, a subconscious feeling of unease. Just like in the last episode I talked about how having text not set to a proper grid will give you a feeling of something isn't right. Well, the same thing can happen with colors. So my sense is that the color palette here might be a little bit too varied. Apart from that, the site looks pretty good. It's obviously professionally designed. There's nothing seriously wrong. So the first impression is good if you're not an expert designer and don't recognize a template when you see it. Orientation. Am I in the right place? Okay. Fairly clear. Experts in imaging hardware. If I'm looking for imaging hardware, I'm obviously in the right place. Further down, very obvious again, imaging products. So the name itself, Arvu, doesn't tell me much, but the imaging hardware and imaging products headlines or headings do. And then it's got a little tagline saying the Arvu Group is a leading developer and manufacturer of high-performance electronics for demanding imaging and vision systems. So that gives me a very clear sense for where I am, so I really can't complain about orientation. And the other thing that we think about with orientation is actually navigation. Where can I go? And that's fairly clear as well. I mean, you can't really miss it. It's an obvious place. The only odd thing is contact, which is up the top as well as here, and as well as down here, which is strange, but I'm going to talk about that in a second a little bit more, working on the assumption that contact is something that you want people to do very badly. Desirability. Do I gain more than I invest? Or do I believe it? I'm going to hazard a guess no. And the reason for that is fairly simple, and that is that although the site looks fairly good, the copy is such that it really doesn't engage me as a prospect. And that's because, okay, there are a couple of reasons. First of all, you've got this Arvu Imaging Products. That's the only real headline until we get down into this second area. But this copy is important. The Arvu Group is a leading developer. Okay, really? Every company who develops imaging products is going to say, yeah, we're a leading developer. And manufacturer, okay, that's informative, but not exactly unique. Of high-performance electronics, well, you know, if I were manufacturing electronics, I would not advertise myself as making low-performance electronics. For demanding imaging and vision systems, and demanding imaging and vision systems could really be anything. if I know a lot about imaging and vision systems, as I assume prospects probably do, I might have a better sense of what demanding means, but it's a very vague word. So this whole first little blurb, although it is informative in a sense, it's also completely generic, and it doesn't make me at all interested in what Arvu are offering. It could be improved greatly by, first of all, putting it into a more personable format, something more conversational, something that sounds more like an actual person talking rather than some kind of uh, bureaucratic committee approved marketing slogan, which, as we all know, are horrible. And then we get down to ITS ANPR products. Okay, let me give you a quick warning about. Sometimes this is unavoidable, but acronyms really turn people off, especially when they're in groups like this. It's just, they're hard to read. Your mind isn't made to pass acronyms, it's made to pass words. And it turns people off, especially having those in headings. So if you could find a way to say that in a different way, and maybe you can and maybe you can't, that would be good. But more importantly, this body copy is where we run into real problems. First of all, it doesn't have any real headlines. It has headings, but it doesn't have anything that grabs the reader's attention, engages with what is in his mind at the moment, and says, look at me, here's what I can offer you, either implied or explicit. This is why you should keep reading. If you keep reading, you'll get this wonderful thing. I really suggest that you have that on your homepage, on every page of your website. Because if you don't, most people aren't going to read your copy. Most people will read your headline because that's how they decide whether they want to read the copy. So, 95% of people going to your website will read your headline pretty well. And about 20% of them, judging from average statistics, will read your copy. So you need to have a very good headline to get above that 20% figure. And these headlines aren't doing the job. So if your copy doesn't get read, then your calls to action don't get read. Your reader doesn't have any idea why he should buy from you. And desirability is very, very low, and you're basically not going to get any kind of conversions. Secondly, you've got... This is where the issue of 3 people talking comes in. You've got 3 columns of text. Which one should I read first? Should I go left to right? In that case, why don't I just read left to right downwards all the way, and you could make projects a heading underneath ITS ANPR products, and components a heading underneath projects. So I really suggest that you have only 1 column of body copy, and that's because columns just don't work on the web. They work in letters and well, not so much in letters because it's unusual, but they work in magazines and they work in newspapers and so on, because one column follows the next column. They are all part of the same text. It's just that because you want to have a certain line width, you put them into columns. Okay, that's fine on paper, but on the internet, the same thing doesn't tend to apply, because when you're scrolling up and down, having columns breaks the model. Normally when we read, we're accustomed to scrolling down all the time. If you've got a column, you have to scroll all the way back up to the top once you reach the end of your column to find what happens next, which is really annoying. But more importantly, usually columns aren't even used in that way. As you can see in this case, the text here isn't actually following one to the next. This text isn't going into this text isn't part of that text, it's just separate text. So you've got essentially 3 different things to read, and that has the tendency of making readers not read anything. One last thing about the copy. I see this a lot. Sign up for our newsletter. Get all the latest news in your inbox! Exclamation mark. And it's got a little disclaimer saying your email will never be used for anything but sending you the newsletter, which is good. But if I don't have any idea yet of why I even want to buy these products or be interested in these products, I'm definitely going to have no idea why I should give you my email address so you can send me basically spam in my perception, not actual spam, I'm sure, but it feels that way to me because I don't have any kind of engagement or commitment. So if you're going to offer people a newsletter, doing it straight up is fine. I think that it's actually better to have it higher up. For most people, this will be below the fold. It's usually good in a sidebar, and pop-ups work too, although I hate them, even though I use it. But you need to give people, again, this is the same thing as with headlines. You need to give people a reason to do what you're asking them to do. You need to explain to them the benefits or the implied benefits of doing this thing, signing up for your newsletter, reading your copy, clicking your call to action, all that kind of thing. Simply asking them to get latest news isn't going to cut it, because they don't really care about the latest news in imaging. Even if they're in the imaging industry or looking for imaging products, they probably get quite enough coming into their inbox. They're not going to want any more. Offering them something like a free report on how to choose imaging products, which subtly moves them in the direction of your particular company by calling out some specific aspects of what you do, that's an effective way of getting people to sign up and of getting them to convert into customers. Alright. Finally, offers. Do my goals match the available options? And here, well, it could go either way. On the one hand, we do have 3 basic calls to action here, and of course subscribe me here, and contact us directly. Now, I would say contact us directly. Obviously, contact is a big thing for this site, but I don't think that it should be. I think that it would be better to have the contact page separate. As it is, there is a separate contact page. Having it on the home page is going to distract your readers. And this is another case of having too many objectives on the one page. You need to figure out what the objective of your homepage is. If it's to get people to contact you immediately, then you need to get rid of the other calls to action. But that's not really feasible because most people want to know a lot more before they actually get in touch with you, because getting in touch with you is a form of commitment. So getting rid of the contact link and contact forms is a much better idea, and giving them some better options for getting more into your site, engaging with your content, and that kind of thing is a much better idea. I would say that you need to have, as always, one main objective and one secondary objective. So that could be considered aside from the newsletter, because the newsletter, if it's in a sidebar, is already sidebarred in your user's mind. They've put it aside and they'll deal with that separately. But in your main content, you need to have only 2. So you need to get one of these, get rid of one of these, and that will be easy to do once you start consolidating your copy and decide what your actual objectives for the page are. Also remember that objectives are very, very easy to miss if your user is just scanning down the page and he only sees this little soft orange copy. If your objective is sitting directly above, for example, a very bright orange band, that's quite a nicely designed orange band, by the way, I think it's quite pretty, it's going to fade into the background and it's not going to be very visible. So if you want to get people to click on things, you have to make them as big and as bright as possible. Remember, attention equals contrast plus eye path. If it's in your user's eye path, it helps, but contrast is the most important thing. That's why it comes first. Contrast, contrast, contrast. If you're drowning your calls to action with other elements, then you're going to be in trouble. Alright. 4 things to take away. Firstly, one main objective on your homepage, plus a secondary one, which will lead you, hopefully, to have just one column of text, which is what your readers want. Thirdly, give your reader real reasons to do what you want, whether it be reading your copy or signing up for your newsletter or clicking your calls to action. You have to explain to them why they want to do it. And lastly, emphasize these reasons in your headlines, in your copy, and in your calls to action. Every single thing needs to reinforce the benefits or the wonderful things that are going to happen when your readers subscribe, click, read, and so on. Alright, email me with comments, questions, or hate mail. Always looking forward to that. Or you can get a $99 review for free if you email me, and of course if you are subscribed for the Ace of Spades So you can subscribe at informationhighwayman.com/ace. It is completely free. You can email me non@informationhighwayman.com. And don't forget that if you found this useful and if you think that what I'm saying makes sense, I can teach you a heck of a lot more. So for everything you need to know about this stuff, just click on through to attentionthievery.info and read about my information product, Attention Thievery 101. That's all for today. I will see you next Friday. Thank you for watching. I'm Non.